Let's add a little spice. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Now for today's video is actually going to be a video that is going to be for the historical romance readathon that I'm hosting with my friends Lacey from Lacey Book Lovers and Jessica from Peace Love Books. This historical romance readathon is running from January 15th all the way to the 21st in 2021. So if you guys want to read more historical romances, definitely join the readathon and definitely start a conversation with us using the hashtag HR Readathon. And now for today's video, I'm actually going to talk about some diverse historical romances that I've stumbled upon and that I actually read because I want to talk more about diversity, especially in a genre that has been criticized a lot of the times for being very lack of diversity. It's very plain, if you will. If it's very vanilla. And now I'm trying to find as many authors as I can that really showcase off different races in different time periods so that we can all kind of learn the experiences through these characters and how it's different from our typical historical romance. And I find these books to be really important. So I want to talk about these books ahead of the readathon so that you can have some time to add it to your TBR and that you can actually read it during the readathon. So let's get started. So the first book that I want to talk about is The Pursuit of, and now this book is actually written by Courtney Milan, and Courtney Milan is actually a mixed race author. She is half Caucasian and half Chinese. So this one is already from a person of color author that I really needed to get to read more of because I heard so many good things about Courtney's writing and her role in the romance community as an author and as a person who always advocates for more diversity and for more representation in books. And now The Pursuit of features two characters. One is black named John and one is white named Henry, and they both meet at the last place they would expect to meet their soulmate, which is actually on the battlefield. And what happens is that John and Henry are going head to head against each other, but Henry doesn't seem like he's giving in too much of a fight. He tells John that he can't go back to Britain because of a certain thing that's happening in the past, so he demands that John just kill him and to make him a happy man by giving him death. John decides to help Henry by giving him his jacket so that John and Henry can both pretend to be Americans and they can both have freedom and escape from the awful war and the awful battle. This book is also kind of like a road trip romance because John just wants to return back to home in America and he wants to go back and see his family who has actually been captured and who has actually been enslaved, and now he wants to make sure that his family is okay. Henry has nowhere to go to because he doesn't want to return back to Britain, so he's kind of stuck in America, and he actually decides to go with John on this road trip, and they actually have like this opposites attract romance too as well because John is described to be as very stoic. He doesn't want to talk about himself a lot. He doesn't express any emotions. He's very serious all the time, while Henry is very charming. He's very sweet. He's very flirtatious. He talks a lot and he always constantly annoys John, but John actually really enjoys Henry's company. And this is also kind of a love story between this interracial couple who John really struggles with accepting the fact that he is in love with a white man because he knows how it's going to be and how like racial inequality is and how racism happens and how difficult it is for a person of color to really live in America during those times. And I just really like this book because it talked a lot about these issues really well without also missing out the fact that the romance between them is also blossoming. And I find Courtney did a really good job at expressing John's inner turmoil and how he really struggled with trying to figure out if he should love this white man who represents something more and something greater. This book is actually a novella, so it's really short and something that you can definitely pick up and fly through in at least 2 hours. So definitely recommend you to read this one for the historical romance readathon. So the next book that I read was actually An Extraordinary Union by Alyssa Cole, and this book follows two spies. Once again, it's an interracial couple. It follows a black female heroine who is named Elle, who is a free woman and who decides to join back into like this very special military service where she's an undercover spy in the South and she's trying to get as much information as she can so she can defeat the Confederate parties. And then we have our main male character named Malcolm, who is also a spy, and Elle and Malcolm work together to try to find all the secrets, try to figure out like who is going to be the major players in the war and different things like that. And this is kind of the romance between Elle really struggling with, once again, accepting the fact that she is in love with a white man. I just really like this one too. It had a lot of action, it had a lot of thrilling aspects to it, and I really like how Alyssa didn't make Elle to be a weak character. You know, it was very strong. Like, she's kind of like someone who really puts up walls and layers of walls to protect herself because of her past and because of how she was treated and because of how she is still treated. And I really like how Alyssa didn't make Elle fall in love with Malcolm really easily, and how it really took a lot for Malcolm to convince Elle that he is not one of them and that he is actually a good guy that actually will try to understand, to do better, and to fight for the better good and to fight for freedom for all. So I really like this one, and I highly recommend you check out Alyssa Cole's writing as well. So the next book that I actually read is actually A Duke, the Lady, and a Baby by Vanessa Riley. And now this book tells the story of a West Indian heiress, and she is married to this husband who's very wealthy, who's very rich. But what happens is that her husband actually commits suicide, so she's left with her newborn child, and she's lost everything else, like her name, her title, her fortunes, and there's kind of like this mystery behind her husband's death. But in order for her to really take care of her child, she has to pretend to be the nanny, and she is living in close quarters of, I think, the cousin of her husband. And our Duke is actually an amputee. He's a very scarred and wounded war hero who's very strong and who really doesn't want to depend on others, but he obviously kind of has to, simply because his body's just not in the same condition as it was pre-war. And now this is the story of these two people kind of fighting for their attraction with each other, because they're working so close together all the time, raising this child and also solving this mystery. So this book definitely had a wide range of characters and a really compelling story plotline involving this mystery and involving them going on this journey to figure out what really happened to her late husband. So the last book that I read is actually Willfuls Depravity by Ingrid Hahn, and now this one is an independently published historical romance. I know in the past with our historical romance readathons, we tend to focus a lot on traditionally published historical romance, but there's actually a whole world of indie published historical romance out there that anybody can have access to if they have a Kindle or if they have a Kobo or if they just want to buy ebooks and things like that. So we want to kind of explore the other side of historical romance. So I found Willful Depravity, and I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed this book because this book featured a character that I haven't seen a lot in historical romance. She is described to be as a lot curvier than other girls, than the curvy, slim, hourglass figure characters that we kind of see in historical romance. So this tells a story of Patience, and Patience is always being ridiculed by other people because of her shape and because of her body size, and fat shame her for a lot of things. Her mother always pushes her to go on diets so that she can lose weight, so that she can find a proper husband. But what happens is that our Duke, who is also our main hero, comes into the picture, and he is absolutely captivated by how beautiful Patience is and how like gorgeous her body is, and basically how radiant her personality is too as well. And it tells the story of how the Duke and our main female character kind of have a ongoing friends with benefits relationship, but they don't really commit to anything, and they don't commit to a marriage. And this book also followed our Duke, who comes from an abusive family background where his father is always pressuring him to marry so that he can produce an heir to his title. But our hero's father is also someone that you really can't stomach, and he's just an awful, awful person. And this is the story of these two people. This is the story of two people finding love, ignoring the hate in the world, and to really focus on themselves and their own happiness. And I really recommend you to read this one if you guys are looking for something that's very hot and steamy too as well. So obviously there are more books that I want to read during the readathon, and I'm just going to go quickly through some of the top reads that I want to get to. And the first book that I want to get to is actually a new Stacey Reid novel that was sent to me from Entangled Publishing. So this book is called Her Wicket, Marques by Stacey Reid, and this one follows a character who is being forced into marriage very early on, and she doesn't want to be married, so she decides to ruin her own reputation by claiming that she was the one that slept with our main hero, because our main hero is actually caught up in a scandal where he is seen escaping someone's bedchamber. So our main female heroine decides to tell everyone that he has actually escaped her bedchamber. I think this one's going to follow the trope of marriage of convenience. I've never read a Stacey Reid novel yet, but I'm really excited to try out her books because she has many that are already published. So the next indie romance that I want to read is actually a book by Dahlia Rose, and now this one's called Ophelia's Embrace. This one really captivated my attention simply because it's a historical romance that takes place in Canada, and it takes place in 1899, where there is no laws governing Black people in Canada, and it's set in the province of Quebec, so it's French Canadian, and it tells the story of our main female heroine who left her grand adventure in Paris to move to Canada, and there she meets our main hero, where they have one night of passion that kind of leads them to an unexpected pregnancy. So I can't wait to dive into this one. This one is actually a novella, and it's only around 100 pages. So the last book that I want to get to is another Vanessa Riley book called The Bashful Bride, and this one tells the story of a main male character who is actually an actor, and then our main female character who is actually an heiress, and she needs to marry quickly so that she can get out of a marriage that is being forced upon her. So I think this one's going to include a marriage of convenience trope where she marries this actor and this is how they fall in love. I think there's also a lot of mystery and action elements to this book from the synopsis, so I'm excited to see how this one plays out. But that is it for all my diverse historical romance recommendations and also books that I want to get to during the historical romance readathon. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and hopefully you guys will join us for our readathon. We always have such a fun time discussing historical romance during this time, during our live show, during on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube. So definitely come and join us if you guys want to try out a new genre. But until next time, I'll see you guys again. Bye.